Welcome to Positive Philter with your host, Philip Wilkerson, a podcast that focuses on friends, family, health, and career, with a little self-help along the way. Please join me in this journey for self-improvement, and I hope what I have to share will make you a better person, thus making the world a better place. I hope you enjoy the show. I hope you enjoy the show. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. It's Philip Wilkerson back with another episode of Positive Philter. I'm joined by a special guest. Everyone is a special guest. I'm joined by Miss Elisa Stephano. And like I said, I was about to mispronounce everyone's name. That does not show that I don't know her. I'm just really terrible at names. Now, I met this young lady at Mason. Obviously, I could say I don't work. I work in higher ed, but you could just Google me. So I definitely cannot be too coded. But I met this young lady while she was in her program studying communications, and her and a team of young students developed a program for me, a social media campaign, and it just rocked my socks. It was like a real job. And so we stayed in touch. I stayed in touch with that group, my handshake group, as I call them, but just a great group of students. And now they're out in the world. Actually, all of them are out in the world, graduated and working. And so now I told them, when you're out there in the real world, we're no longer students to staff. You are peers. You are adults. You are people in the real world. But I say that in tongue-in-cheek because Elisa was working and doing real-world stuff concurrently while she was in school. But before we go into this episode about the balance of work and life and school, all that together, Elisa, give the listeners a brief introduction of who you are.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you, Phil, for having me on the show. I'm honored. As Phil said, that wonderful introduction, I studied at George Mason. Before that, I was studying at Northern Virginia Community College, and before that, I attended the New River Valley Community College. I grew up in Burke, Virginia. The youngest in my family. I have an older brother, older sister. I was a previous gymnast and figure skater, and I was a cheerleader in high school for Lake Braddock Secondary School. So just excited to be here, and I work, I'm working now out in the real world, and excited to be here on the show today.
So just going back to it, the group that you had on campus was comprised of just a wide range. I think Allison and Nick and Geneva and Aaron, just a great group. And y'all all had different life experiences. I think you and Allison were probably the two in the group that had a little bit of a non-traditional college experience, because I believe she was working as well. She was working full time, so y'all made it work. But just kind of, you said the community college trends. Talk about a little bit about that work experience that you had while you were going to school. What were you working as?
Well, yeah, I mean, let me back up to even high school, because that's when I started my entry into the workforce. I was about 16 years old, and I started working at my best friend's mom's home daycare. Just grew up with my best friend. I've known them for 23 years, and his mom needed some help, and so I started working at her daycare. She was paying me $10 an hour, taking care of kids, playing with the kids. And then I started, once I passed my water safety instructor certification class, I became a WSI for South Run Rec Center. I started teaching swimming lessons. That was something I did in high school. And then I finished high school, and I decided I was going to go, because I knew I was going to have to put myself through school. So I went down to live with my cousin down in the New River Valley, and I lived in Radford, and I worked for a financial advisor. That was my first real office job. I worked for the New River Financial Group and attended community college there for about a year. Didn't really like the area that much, moved back home, and continued to teach swimming lessons. And I started working for a real estate company, and throughout going to Nova, and then eventually into Mason. And I stayed with that real estate company for about 3 years, and I'm still in real estate today. I'm actually half licensed at this point in my life. I'm going to take my final test this Saturday, and then I'll have my Virginia salesperson's license. So really excited for that. But yeah, that's when I got into the workforce, and all the way through school, I worked in real estate, taught swimming lessons, and worked at a daycare. And I hosted at a
Yeah,
restaurant.
man, you had many jobs. You know, you like my best friend. I joke with my best friend who's his name is Hillard, and I know this is a stereotype, but my man is Jamaican, and Jamaicans about have 4 jobs at the same time. And you an honorary Jamaican. No shade to the Jamaicans out there, just working like working hard,
Yeah.
and no job was. And another thing that I noticed with my friend is similar to him is no job is beneath him. Like my best friend, he's a full-time school counselor, but at the same time, when he needed extra money, he'll work at Kohl's, he'll cut grass. I mean, he's hustling. Where was that mindset for you? Why did you, even no matter what you were saying, like, I have to have a full-time job and go to school, and that hustler mentality?
Ooh, it's about to get deep. Well, so I mean, it all started back in actually in elementary school. I was about 10 years old, and my parents had had decided they were going to split. It was a very nasty divorce. I know a lot of people can relate. A lot of people come from divorced families, and it's not easy. It's not the hardest thing in the world, but it's not easy. And so they split, and my mother and I moved in with my grandfather. Lucky enough, he lived down the street from us. We were able to live with my grandfather for a while until he had gotten sick with cancer. And next thing we knew, it was just me and my mom in this 5-bedroom, 3-story house in Northern Virginia that we couldn't afford. And so, we struggled for a few years. And let me back up. The divorce of my parents happened in 2008 during the housing crash, the economic crisis.
The recession, yes.
The recession, yes. The bank ended up taking the house. We foreclosed on it, and we lost it. And so then after losing my grandfather, my mom, who was a stay-at-home mom essentially, had no career and had to go back into the workforce. And so she and I, we found a house down in Dumfries, and it was a 3-bedroom, 1-level ranch style house. And we moved down there. It was about half an hour to 45 minutes away from like all my friends, my high school and everything. So that was tough on me as like a 15-year-old high schooler. And so I knew I was going to have to pick up slack, and I was going to have to pull my own weight. And, just going through those years of going from, and I mean, we live in Northern Virginia. It's a pretty affluent area.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
so going from, Burke, Virginia to Dumfries, Virginia, I mean, still Dumfries is a great place to live. I got love for it, but it's a very different scenario. And so I knew I was going to have to pull my own weight. And so that's when I started working at my best friend's daycare. And then I eventually got into teaching swimming lessons, which was something my mom always kind of did on the side. And that's when that whole college thing, I was like, okay, I could go for a scholarship, but I'd prefer to work because I know the value of making money and getting that experience and knowledge there. So I'm going to put myself through school. I'm going to go to community college. It's more affordable, blah, blah, blah. And that's the route that I chose to go down.
What about, so obviously you're in great shape. I could tell. So the sports took a back seat. Did you have to really completely stop playing sports when you transitioned to that full-time work in high school, particularly?
Yeah, I did. I actually was, I don't like to live in the past. I'm pretty washed at this point. But
yeah. Hey, I love that you say that too, because I got my medals and my powerlifting trophies. Oh man, a funny thing is like the powerlifting trophy is only like 5 years old. Like I was doing it like right when I hit 30, and now how am I already 35 and washed? But,
right.
That's funny. That's funny.
But I was a pretty serious figure skater. I did figure skating, ice dancing with a partner, and synchronized skating on 2 different teams. So I was skating 6 days a week, 12 hours a day. I was training every weekend. I was up at 4:30 on the weekends, skating all day long, up before school, skating after school, going into high school, considering not going through high school and considering homeschooling, considering going to an alternative school or getting a kind of tutor. But going back to that financial aspect, it's an expensive sport. My older brother, he's 8 years older than me. His first car was a manual red Mustang. Okay, I don't know cars that well. I can't tell you the year and the make and model, but I know it was a Mustang. And he ended up selling it so that I could continue my skating career. And my skating career, like, I don't want to brag, but I was a pretty well-versed figure skater looking at getting sponsored to go into the Olympics. And I was in middle school. I was young and I was good, and I didn't have a lot of friends on my teams. Like, figure skating for me was a huge distraction to my life and everything that was falling apart around me. And so I put all of my energy into that sport. And going into high school, it got really serious. And my mom was like, do you want to keep going down this path? Or do you want to have a life like your older sister? My sister's 4 years older than me. She was captain of the cheerleading team. She had friends over all the time, parties on the weekends. Like, I was just like, I just want to have a life and play with my friends and not have to get up and sacrifice every weekend. Like, I want to go to that summer vacation that my friend's inviting me to. And I want to have sleepovers, but I could never do that kind of stuff because I was getting up the next morning so early to go and train. And so the sports definitely took a back seat. I thought about it, I guess, a lot in college, because I would tell myself, like, geez, okay, I got to take out another loan for this semester. I got to do my FAFSA again. And I'm thinking in the back of my head, I could have had a scholarship to a lot of colleges for synchronized skating, because that's not something that a lot of people do or even know about. And
I didn't know they had scholarships for skating.
Yeah,
I knew they had scholarships for gymnastics and all the other sports, but I didn't know. So that's interesting. But you took the back seat, and then, but with that back seat, and I'm learning that you're working, were you able to, because that you didn't do the gymnastic, the synchronized, not synchronized, figure skating, were you able to fulfill and have friends and balance that in high school and college? Because of skating being a back seat, were you able to have friends and a little bit of a life in that really hustle that you had?
Yeah, for sure. I'm a firm believer in not, blaming other people and situations for your problems and everything. And I don't really regret giving up my skating career. I think about the difference my life could have, came to if I had gone down that route of sticking to skating, but I decided to quit. I quit and I went back for a year, and then I quit again for good. And upon quitting, I tried out for the cheerleading team. I met 4 really great girls that I still keep in touch with today. My friends that I grew up with, plus 2 more friends that we've been friends with for over 10 years now. We grew really, really close. And I had never cheered before. I used to be the gymnast in the gym that would make fun of the cheerleaders that came in and practiced. And then I was a cheerleader, and I had so much fun. So I definitely found the balance and made a lot of friends, and I would never regret going down that route.
So, and this is a fast forward. So you've been working, and I think going to community college and continue to work. Was there ever a time where, like, whether that was in the Nova Community College, New River Community College, or Mason, where you're like, at this point, I'm a working person. I don't need a degree per se. I can just continue to work full time, and I've made a life out of myself? Or did you say, I still, while I work full time, I still need to finish a degree? And for that, when you say that, what was the reason and rationale that you held that the degree was still worth finishing?
It's a good question. I always knew that I wanted a college degree. It wasn't until I got to George Mason that I decided I wanted to study what I studied. But for sure, those first 2 years in community college, I was in a really depressed state, and I was considering all types of things. Going into AmeriCorps, just dropping out completely and putting full force into working, supporting my mom. I definitely contemplated it, but there was always a voice in the back of my head that told me just keep going, because if you stop now, you'll never come back to it, which is what a lot of people tell young college students that are considering taking a gap year. People can do it, but I decided to stay true to myself and stay true to that voice in my head that just kept telling me to just keep studying, just finish it out.
And so while you were doing it, and you worked really hard, can you describe what was your experiences like as a college student? Did you feel like you had like we use that word non-traditional, we're actually getting away from it and using contemporary students because we know that the world is changing and a lot of students are coming back to school and don't have this typical, very cookie cutter college experience, whether they're parents with kids going back to school or veterans in the military going back to school. Can you speak upon your experience as a what we call contemporary student, non-traditional student per se?
Yeah, I think my experience was probably more non-contemporary, non-traditional, however you want to say it, just because of the fact that I worked and decided to go to community college, which I guess you would say the contemporary college student experience is getting a dorm room, getting a roommate, going to school, whether your parents pay for it or the government pays for it or you got a scholarship. But, the dorm room, roommate, living on campus, living off campus, that whole sorority, maybe fraternity, maybe experience, I would say I definitely had a non-contemporary experience because I worked and I went to community school. I was a commuter, and then I went to George Mason, which is also a commuter school, which is like a huge commuter school. And I mean, yeah, I do. I think a lot of the time, majority of my time in school, I knew that school was my number one priority. It was the most important thing, but always I would act like work was more important. I would skip class so that I could get more hours in at the office.
Yeah, so that's interesting. Do you feel like you even have school pride, or did you like feel like rah rah, or it's like I would have done this, just insert school here?
I considered, with my athletic background, I considered becoming a cheerleader for George Mason. But as the whole concept of time and money, I was like, I'm not going to put my time into this school. I could put my time into getting money to be able to do other things like buy a car and then not have to use my mom's car to pick her up and take her to work so I could go to class. I had pride for sure, but I wouldn't say I was the most prideful student. I wouldn't say I was a cheerleader like I was in high school. Like I loved my high school and I like my college. I'm proud to have graduated from George Mason, very proud. But while I was there, no, I didn't go to many homecomings. I didn't go to one basketball game, to be
Oh
honest.
yeah. Like,
So,
how about connecting with other students and building that connection? And I think a lot of a sense of belonging. And even in grad school, I felt that I still have a little bit of a pride in that experience because I mean, like you said, I wasn't a grad student at Mason. I wasn't going to basketball games all the time, but it was my classmates. I actually have classmates where I stayed in touch with them, and so I felt connected to the university, not particularly because of the buildings, but because of like we got like a cohort and we stayed together. Do you feel like you still got that experience?
Oh yeah, 100%. And it's funny that we're sitting here today on the Positive Filter podcast because I feel like when I met you back in that PR class and doing that public relations campaign, you really inspired me a lot to have that kind of school spirit and be that prideful and that proud of George Mason and being a student at George Mason. I've always been a social butterfly per se. I love talking to people and meeting new people, and I can become friends with almost anybody. And so, yeah, for sure, those relationships and the people that I met, I always looked forward to new classes and meeting new people and, group projects. And I still keep in touch. Like I was just talking to Jennifer the other day, and my best friend of 23 years, like he was born April 1997. I was born June 1997. We grew up 3 houses down. We're still best friends to this day. He graduated from Mason a year earlier than me, considering I went to community college and was a little
You know,
later to graduate, but no, yeah, for sure. The relationships are super important to me, and
that gives you more of a tie to the school than the buildings, more of a tie to the school uh, than the actual like piece of paper is the relationships you built, right? Like, and I'm only saying that I know I'm putting words in your mouth, but that's pretty much similar to what my experience is. Like, school pride to me was more like people pride that we were in experience together. Like, I remember the classmates, right? Like, you know,
yeah, no, and when I was a figure skater, when I was 8 years old, skating, and I had no clue what I was going to be or do when I was 10 years from then. My coach, Jill, she was George Mason. She was going through George Mason, and she was a George Mason alum. And my older brother, who I look up to so heavily, always wanted to go to George Mason. He took a different route in life, and it just, so going and getting accepted was so important to me, because I was so excited to go and tell him, like, hey, I'm completing your dream here, like, live it through me, you know. And so I definitely am proud to have graduated from George Mason. And
so you were working full time, and you went back to it, and you were getting a license in real estate. Um, what kind of like experience, like, talking to students, right? Do you think that most students in their lives should think of like that experiential learning outside of the world of the classroom, and it, as well as the, like, how do you think that those kind of educations, your certificate in real estate and your curriculum in school, how do you think they complemented each other, and would you think that some students should think of some ways to like get learning outside the classroom?
I do 100% think that every student should, either, whether it's an internship, better if it's paid because then it's benefiting you, definitely try something outside of school, because the wisdom and the knowledge that you get just from the people that you work with, like, you never know what people you will work with or you might work with have been through, where they've, the kind of knowledge and wisdom they have, that you might, have the benefit of consuming from them, that they might share with you. So I 100% think that people should always be doing something a little bit extra, whether that's an internship, an online class, like, always be learning, and always be looking and searching, collecting knowledge. Because I started my real estate class, I think I took a real estate class at my first community college, like through the college for a credit. And then I took the Mosley online salesperson's course, which was a 60 credit hour course. I think my junior year of university, I started that. And I mean, there were things in my classes that I learned that I could sometimes apply to what I was learning in real estate. But for the most part, it was just the discipline that helped, the discipline of studying, and hybrid. So it was in person for like 4 or 6 weeks, and then it was all online. And I'm really glad that I did do it, because it was challenging, and I think people should always be looking to challenge themselves as well as collect knowledge. And
Was there ever a time where, because of your outside learning, outside experience, when a kid would complain about like, oh man, my life's so hard, or this class is so hard, and you wanted to be like, yo, shut up, like, I'm doing for real, I'm doing 2 times as much as you. Did you ever feel like you was like when you feel like your experience outside the classroom and all that was like, yo, y'all need to chill, like, do y'all realize how hard it is to have this balance, and you're complaining about stuff? Did you ever get that experience?
I try my hardest not to judge other people. I know everybody takes what they go through to their own extremes and their own levels. That you never really know what people are going through, and you never know how they're taking it. So not really. More in high school, just because I was going through a lot of like life transition, and I was more naive in high school. So when people would would complain and high schoolers would say things like, I would just be like, I can't even relate.
Yeah.
Honestly, I can't even relate. And it's like people would say things to me because I was a cheerleader and I was captain of the cheerleading team. And I would just be like, you don't even know what you're saying. Like, don't judge a book by its cover because you never know what someone's going through.
So what was, you spoke upon it earlier. What was some of the like driving factors that kept you motivated? Like, and can you take me through a typical day of one of your busy days, like the wake up at 6? Can you take me through a busy day, what it was like when you were working full time and going to school full time? Take me through a typical day like that for you.
Yeah, I could tell you off the bat, my family has always been what's kept me going. My family is so important to me. I was born in Northern Virginia, but my father's side of the family is Italian American, and so it's a value we hold very close to our hearts. And so my mom, my brother, I never really had to worry about my sister because she was finishing school out in Tennessee, and so my mom and my brother were my biggest driving factors. And my dad too, because he was always so focused on, like school and being scholarly. Like my dad teaches leadership for Prince William County, and my dad was a huge nerd. Not to throw shade on the nerds out there.
Yeah, shout out to the nerds. Your boys right here.
Nerds are the coolest.
Yeah, I'm a blur back there. I love it. I take that title with pride. So yeah.
Nerd. So my dad was huge on just being scholarly. My mom was more like real life, do what you got to do, follow your heart, whatever whatever it takes. But a typical day, I'd say, when I think about it, the first thing that comes to my mind is back when I was living with my mom and my brother and going to Northern Virginia Community College and working at the pool and at the daycare, in the real estate company.
She's okay. Yeah.
I would wake up around 5:30, 6 o'clock, and I would take my mom to work, and she worked about 20 minutes, 30 minutes from our house. I come back, I would pick up my brother. No, I would come back, and then I would go to my 9 a.m. class. I would make breakfast, whatever, clean the house, go to my 9 a.m. Maybe I had 2 classes, 3 classes back to back. I would leave Nova to go and pick up my mom, take her home, pick up my brother, take him to Centerville from Woodbridge, drop him off at the restaurant where he was working, get back to Nova, get dropped off, and and I was at school for the rest of the night.
Some more night classes. So what time would you go home? What time would you get home and go to bed?
So when I was at Nova, I was getting home around 10:30, 11 o'clock, which wasn't that bad. But when I bought my car, like when I got my first car, then I was hustling. Like I would wake up, go to my 9 a.m., go to my job, work, 5 hours, go to my class, and then either go. I lived with a couple of friends at the time in between then. So either go back to my friend's house or go to my mom's house, and then, just trying to find the balance between going to school, going to work, and getting my homework assignments done. And
I was about to say, when did you do the homework?
It was easy though. Sometimes when I would be at school, like for 4 or 5 hours, because I would have a class and then a break. So I would just do all my homework then.
Mm-hmm.
But I definitely hijacked the work printer a lot for papers and
So how organized are you? So were you using a planner? Like I mean, it seems jam packed. How did you stay afloat with all this order?
Crazy. I never had a laptop through college.
Oh my! So would you?
Had a laptop.
Okay, so would you? Yeah, okay, that actually is. So would you do papers on your phone? Like get the Word? Would you have Microsoft Word on your phone? Okay, I can see that. Like I'm trying to hack it. So you use Microsoft Word on your phone. So you had the apps like Word and Excel on your phone.
Google Drive, all of that, yeah. And I would use the computers at school a lot. So I just go to the library and use the free computers. But then I got to the point where my friend would lend me her laptop. So I just go to her house late night, write papers, and then send them to my email, get to work the next morning, print them out from my email. So, I mean,
you hustle. I mean, you had a system.
Yeah, I had a system, but I'm way more organized now that I'm like really, really full-time in the workforce, and I love the company I work for. So I'm way more, I take it way, way more like to the next level. Like I have a planner, I have a journal, I have a planner, I have two calendars. Like I'm crazy with it.
But that shows a lot of resiliency, man. Like that, like I'm just like smiling, but also like in all, like you did it all on your phone. I'd be doing that too. Like, I'll be thinking about ideas and I'll start a draft on my phone in Microsoft Word, but I don't know that you're right there. But on the flip side, there's nothing like completing a paper on a computer of some sort. I don't know why. Like your mind thinks that like you could type a whole paper on your phone, but it just seems different when you have a keyboard. I don't know. It's your mind. But your mind feels different, but you can make, like you said, you can make it work. I think in extreme situations, like if I had to turn in something, if I had to turn in a paper, you best believe I'm going to find a way to turn in a paper, whether that paper was typed completely on my phone, on a Microsoft Word app or whatever. That's phenomenal. So I don't know, man. I'm like still in awe. That's crazy. That's crazy.
I say it with so much like pride too. I'm like,
no, that is pride. You almost have like one of those stories where like someone says they walked a mile in the snow and all that. Like you don't know what you had. I walked 2 miles to school. You could be like, you don't know what you had. I had no computer, and I was making my phone. I was using my phone. That's like that's gonna be like your old woman, like you don't know what you have speech.
And that's another thing. I schemed a couple times with parking because I never bought a parking pass. Like I was cheap with it. I never bought a parking pass.
So how'd you do that? You parked across the street?
Even at Nova, when the parking passes were like $90, I was like, nah, that's $90 in my pocket. Like I would park on the street and walk. At George Mason, can I tell a funny story?
I mean, I know where you can park it. Yeah, go ahead and tell the story, but I think I'm guessing where you parked, but go ahead.
So I was at Mason one time and I pulled up and I was running late for my class and I pulled up into a 15-minute parking lot and I took a ticket off the car next to me and I put it on my windshield. And I went to class and I came back and the car was still next to me, the same car, and they took it off and I put it back and I left.
So someone else's ticket, so.
Yeah, like I put it.
No, finesse.
You know?
Sorry, whoever that is. John Doe, whoever's parking ticket.
Sorry.
I thought your story was more like you parked in 15-minute parking and act like you had some like bowel syndrome and kept on going to the bathroom every 15 minutes.
Oh, no. But I definitely gave GMU parking services the runaround with my excuses to amend my parking tickets because.
I did. I totally empathize. I used to find a way at JMU, parking like in BW's, the restaurant's parking lot and walking.
A lot of times, though, I was parking like in the neighborhoods and I was walking half a mile.
Yeah, you could do that.
In the winter. Nice.
So you made it work. When and doing this way, and paying it for yourself. Do you think that? And I know that you say you don't compare your experience, but do you think that when you see where your dollars are going, do you feel like? And this is the big existential question. Do you feel like the return on investment that paying, like school, this higher ed system, do you feel like it's worth it? Like, I've listened to podcasts where it's like, if you don't know what you want to study, don't go to college. It's not worth it. But if you do know what you study and you have a focus, this is one of those depends story. It's depend answers. I think it's worth it if you took advantage of certain things. And I think college, and before I ask you, I would say my 2 cents is I think college is worth it if you take full advantage of the social capital of college, like building relationships and leveraging, like internships that you can get through the university and things like that. But if you just went to class and that's it, like your only experience was going to class and going home, then I don't think college is worth it. That's my 2 cents. So what is your return on investment? Do you think higher ed is worth it, college is worth it?
I mean, I guess it comes down to the fact of that phrase, like worth it. Like, what does that mean? What is it worth it mean? Because I can agree with what you said. Like, if you utilize what you learn in college, then yeah, you could say it's worth it. But is it I don't, it's a tough question because I would say, you know, I can also see the other side of it because I know a lot of people who have spent a lot of money on college and then
Mhm.
they're those type of people that just go to class and go home. They don't even make friends. They don't like their colleges. They forget about it. It's just a piece of paper. They don't even hang up their degrees. But
Mhm.
I think it's worth it if you wanted it. Like if you didn't want it, then obviously you're not going to use, well, maybe not obviously you're not going to use what you learned from it, but
Yeah.
like my whole thing was I could have dropped out, but I didn't because I always wanted to keep learning. I love to learn. I liked what I studied. And so I think, yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's worth it because what you invest your time into always finds a way to be useful in your life somehow. And so whether it's something that you apply to your career, is whether it's somebody you meet that you spend the rest of your life with or end up working with, or you end up going back to the school and working there, I think, yeah, I think it's worth it in the end, at the very end. When
So, but how about the people
it
that
comes
say
down.
like, how about the people that say like, they, you know, that in certain degrees are not worth it unless it's like a professional degree. So, for instance, I'm a history major. I I think my history degree is
Mhm.
totally worth it because it taught me intangible skills about presentations and reading analytically and critical thinking. And I think my program was dope, so I was invested. But someone said if it's not business or not nursing or something medicine where you directly get a job out of it, it's not worth it. What do you say to those people about the subject matter of what you study?
I say that's a very negative way of thinking about it because, like you, I mean, I'm not doing exactly what I studied. I studied public relations. I was a communication major and I'm working in the real estate industry. But the reason I studied communication is because it's something I use every single day. And so I directly apply it to what I do. And I find it so fascinating when politic political discussions come up or um, just listening to the radio and paying attention to the news and just the things that I studied, I see them in the real world coming up. And so I think it doesn't really matter what you study as long as you want to study something that's important and it's worth it because at the end of the day, you learn in college, you learn how to study.
Yeah, yeah, skills.
So, you
There's
know,
skills. So what skills did you learn from your comm degree that you said? So like I told you, like I know for sure I'm never going to be a history professor or whatever, but I knew the skill. Like if I can analytically look, and what I did, one, I read a lot of papers, so I know I can look at reading and read and like say, what am I actually reading here? Two, uh, we had to talk in class. And, your boy loves to talk, but I had to learn how to present, like take what I learned and actually convey that to someone else. So it's taught me the skill of teaching people. And then I don't know, just in general, it was like dope about being open-minded and listening to other people when they present and that learning mindset. I mean, that's what I got in history. But what did you think you like tangibly skills? What do you think you learned from your degree?
one of the biggest things that I think about a lot, especially nowadays with the election coming up in November and all of this coronavirus pandemic and this media blast, is with a public relations degree, you study a lot of how you consume communication and messages and rhetoric. And so I think about that a lot when I listen to the news, and I think about, what I choose to listen to and how I choose to interpret it and how that affects my decisions. I also think a lot about argumentation and debate when I get into an argument, whether it's like with my friends or with my husband or with my mom. I learned a lot from my argumentation class with Warren Decker. And I think about that man still to this day because I learned so many skills of listening and communicating and how to effectively communicate. And then I also think about when I'm watching movies and stuff and listening to music, just the messages that I'm just unconsciously taking in and consuming. So those are just a few things, but I could keep going. I mean,
Yeah, so I mean, definitely that's a big skill. Listening, active listening, what I'm hearing, and also decoding what is the real message. Like, yo, that seems off. What are they trying to like? What are they trying to sell me? and you realize about persuasion and different things and consumer, and then like how like tone of voice and debate. So yeah, I definitely agree.
Nonverbal communication.
Nonverbal.
Did you know? I think it's 93% of our communication is nonverbal. Let that
Is it 93 or 83? It's one of those three.
I'm pretty sure it's 93, but
I know it's a lot. I know it's like for sure that a lot of things are lost in translation with text because it's a large percentage, right? Like you can't read tone, eye contact, all that, and in general, like it is. So I agree.
Yeah, no, I just Googled it, 93%.
Hey, look at you. Hey, that's an argument right there. You won. You won. So we're coming to the part of the show called Shot for Shot.
Okay.
You get to ask me any random question. I get to ask you any random question. Do you want to go first? I go first.
You can go first.
All right. So you are was a multi-sport athlete, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can you name like who are your favorite athletes? And you know whatever, you don't have to say 5, 10. I don't care. Who are your favorite athletes and why are they your favorite athletes?
You know, I've never really been a huge fan of anything.
Oh, okay. It's like, I'm a fan of myself. Okay.
I've never been that huge fangirl, but if I have to name a few, I would say Allie Raisman, just for her bravery and that whole Larry Nassar case. She was one of my favorites. Nastia Lukin for her beam routine to Once Upon a December from Anastasia. Great movie. Figure skaters like Michelle Kwan was cool to me, but I never really was like a fan of her. I was a little figure skater. I mean, then like Michael Weiss and I don't know. I mean, those are.
You rock with Tanya Harding?
You know, I watched that movie, I, Tonya, and when I was a figure skater, I was like, whoa, she was so bad. And then I watched the movie and I was like, I kind of feel her. Like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, me too. That's exactly how I felt too. I was like, oh, I think I don't blame her for her. Like that show was hard. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. But I mean, like I said, like I've never really been like a huge fan. Like, oh my God, I got a poster of even Justin Bieber. Like, I don't.
Okay, that's good. So go ahead, ask one from me.
All right. Well, I guess I just want to talk about Maggie because I love her and I know your family. So, I mean, when did you know that Maggie was the love of your life? And how? How did you know? When and how?
Oh, dang. So, this is gonna show me like being pressed, right? So, I met Maggie, and everyone knows I met her in the 10th grade, but I had a crush on her friend, and she made fun of me, and we didn't reconnect until senior year. So there's 2 years went by. And
wait, what did you go to?
Huh?
What high school did you go
to? I went to Mount Vernon.
Oh,
I went to West Potomac. And so I had a crush on her friend, but that, nothing happened with that. And I was at my friend's house, and it popped up on IM, and my friend was like, yo, I'm with Philip Wilkerson. She's like, that creepy dude that had a crush on my friend at the library. I said, creepy. And I had the little AIM message, and it had like a little link, and it could, like, if you click the link, it would tell me who saw my profile. So she clicked the link, and I was like, oh, so who's creepy now? You're looking at me, and we talked all summer and all that stuff. But I knew that I loved her. Well, I knew her early. I was pressed, but I knew that she was the one right in the first year we were dating. When we started dating when we went into college my freshman year. And I still have the letters. I was pressed writing her letters, handwritten letters, and we were writing. She our first anniversary, I could pull it up. She made like a book of like for 1 year down and forever to go, and it was so cool. We were babies, and but I just knew that she was really special when I was at Bowie and she was at JMU, and she was actually like an adult, like a mini adult, like telling me to go to class and always looking out for me and always having my best interests in heart, and just, I don't know, just always treated me treated me like I was somebody, like always thought I was going to be better than I was. And I remember I said I loved her first, And she was like, yeah, thank you. She didn't even say it back. I was so pressed. It was like my first major girlfriend. But it was like, I can't remember the exact moment. I knew it was in that year, that first year of dating, that I said to myself, I'm going to be with this person for a long time. I don't know if I'm going to marry her, she's going to marry me, but we're going to be together for a long, like we're going to be in each other's lives. And she's really important to me. I knew that off the break. And then as we go on, through college and we're about to graduate, I'm like, yep. It's like, it was every year that we did things together. I was like, yep, I'm going to marry her. I'm going to marry her. And by the time I graduated college, I was like, yeah, we're going to get married, but I need to get my life together. I need to have a job. I need to, she's already got her master's. I always felt like I always had to keep up with her before I could get married. Like when I graduated college in a year behind, like I had to stay a year behind, she already had her master's. So I was like, oh no, I ain't going to marry someone that already has a master. I got to elevate myself to match her. So it was always like, I don't think I'm going to be, I love her forever, but I don't think I'm ready to marry her until I can be good enough. And that's what I always felt like, good enough. And then I got my master's and all that stuff, but it still feels like that, like she's always there. Everyone here's a funny story. So we used to turn up, and it's not even everyone knows this, so this is not like a behind the scenes thing, but like I remember I was a wild kid. You don't know if that I'm reformed now. I'm so good now. But we were at a party at JMU, and we were drinking, and she got real mad at me. And she's like, if it wasn't for me, you'd be dead in a dumpster. And I said, hold up.
Ouch.
I said, hold up. I understand that you saved my life. I give you a lot of credit. But why a dumpster? Like why didn't you say a ditch or anything else? Like, I got no enemies. I'm not in the mob. And she's like, literally, Philip. She's like, of all this thing that you're arguing about the dumpster part. I was like, yeah, like, I mean, you give me a lot of credit, but then if you when we tell that story to my parents, they're like, yep, she's right, yep. Like everyone, my best friend Hillary was like, yep, she's right. And so like that's so funny. Like everyone was like, yo, that was my dad said that at our wedding speech. My boy is like dead in the dumpster. No one argues about it. So I don't know. That was a long answer to say that I knew I was going to be with her ever since I was an 18-year-old kid. And she was way more wiser than her years. When I was 18, she felt like she was already 30. And she was already telling me what to do. So when people say, oh, when you get married, your wife's going to tell you what to do. I said, I've been like this since 18. It don't matter.
Yeah.
Like we've been like this since 18. So
yeah.
I knew very early on as a young person that we were going to be together. I even had pictures and dreams of having a family and kids. I didn't picture my kids being like this. I'll tell you that. But I definitely knew that she was going to be in my life for a very long time. And hopefully forever.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I got to look back. I think we had those things, those letters. And, oh, my God. I kept it in a book. I was so pressed. It was so sappy. It was like,
I got roses. I got dried up roses.
I got so much. I got the box. I did that. I did the rose petal thing our first year of dating. I was legit pressed. I'm still pressed, but I don't know. And this is my last joke before I go on this long rant. I told a lot of people, I'm lucky I found Maggie at 18 before she knew what was better out there. I got her before the world told her. I got her when she was 18, young and impressionable. Before she realized there was better options out there. But I'm very lucky and very blessed. So, yeah. I don't know. I think her response would be like, if you ask her the same question, she'd say, I think he was all right.
I think like some of my favorite podcast episodes of yours to listen to are the ones with you where it's you and Maggie.
Because you can hear it. You can hear in her voice how she gets on me. Like,
oh yeah.
You see it when we're like, when you were helping our son learn swimming. Like, you see how she be talking to me? how my wife treat me? But I'm very blessed. So this has been great. This has been a great episode. I'm very happy to have you on here. This is the part of the show I call shout outs and plugs. Shout out anyone you want to show love to, and then plugs, anything where you would like the listeners, would you ever feel comfortable to follow up with you or anything that you're working on. So the stage is set. Shout outs and plugs.
I want to give a shout out to all my best friends because they have really contributed to making me who I am. Obviously, shout out Joey Gallier, GMU alum, Rihanna Renzi, Longwood alum, Nirali Shah, UVA alum, and Betsy Gallier. She's an artist. Didn't go the college route, but she's a young artist, and she's one of the most creative people I know. So shout out to my wolf pack. And shout out to my mom, obviously my mom, my dad, my brother, and my husband, who has really impacted my life this last year. So shout out to them. And if you're listening to this and you have any interest at all in getting into real estate, investing in real estate, you know, buying a house, renting a house, definitely message me, call me, DM me, shoot me an email. Should I just drop my handles here?
Yeah, that's it. Exactly.
My Instagram handle is just Elisa Stephano. That's ELIISA STEPHANO. So Elisa Stephano, that's me on Instagram. I have a Twitter, but I'm not really active on there. I couldn't even tell you my handle right now, to be honest with you. Text me 703-477-7897 or shoot me an email. It's just elisastefano13@gmail.com. ELISASTEPHANO, the number 13@gmail.com. I would love to help you. Actually, what I'm doing these days is I work for a real estate coaching industry. So we help agents across the country build teams, build their businesses, get more business. And it's developing into kind of a life coaching brand. So if you're interested at all in real estate, selling, buying, investing, becoming an agent, definitely I encourage you to contact me because I would love to help you, because I feel like that is what my purpose is on this earth, is to spread light, love, and help others.
Well, I'll definitely put that information in the show notes for people to follow up with you. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Listeners, if you like this episode, please share it with your family and friends. Positive Philter on all platforms. Filter spelled with a PH. If you also want to leave a voicemail for the podcast, it's 571-336-6560. That's 571-336-6560. Spreading positivity is a movement. Thank you for listening, and we're out. Thank you for listening to Positive Philter, a podcast that focuses on family, friends, career, with a little self-help along the way. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share it with your family and friends, and like the Facebook page, Spreading Positivity a Movement. Thanks for listening.